40 years ago, when the Rebbe first spoke about the Tzimtzum, Lifnei Tzimtzum, there was a big chidush. The Golomb had never heard about this beforehand, and there was a big ispailus. What is the Rebbe talking about? What does it mean? And later on, there was a hemshech, as we know, to Bishvat, and then again by Yishma Yisrael, and then again in Tovshin Mem Zayin, the Rebbe said a Maimah, HaChodesh Azeh Lachem, which came out Mugin Mem Ches, and there we have a few more oisias to explain in the Kudah. So let's understand, what does this mean that there's Tzimtzumim Lifnei Tzimtzum? You see this all over the place. We come across the union of Tzimtzum Rishon. We know it from Eitz Chaim. Chassidus Chabad is beyusad on Eitz Chaim, which was written by Reb Chaim Vital. And we always rely on Reb Chaim Vital as the mocker for Yoni Kabbalah. But occasionally we find that Chassidus also brings down from another very famous sefer called the Emek HaMelech. The Emek HaMelech is coming from a different branch of Kabbalah. Some people say that his Rebbe was Rabbi Yisrael Srub. And Rabbi Yisrael Srub, they say, some people say he came before Reb Chaim Vital. But Al Kopanim, there's two branches of Kabbalah. We rely totally on the Reb Chaim Vital. And in fact, there were many Mekubalim that didn't look in any other Svarim. They said you're not allowed to look in any other Svarim from the Talmidei Harizal, only Reb Chaim Vital. But nevertheless, when it came to Talmidei Baal Shem Tov, Tevina Bezitcha Magid, it's known, the Rebbe said, he brought it down in the Maimon Mem Ches, the Rebbe said that if one wanted to learn something from the Sefer Emek HaMelech, you had to receive Reshus from the Magid. Because you can only rely on certain parts. But Al Kopanim, it comes out that Sefer Emek HaMelech is very well accepted in Chassidus, and you'll find yourself all over the place when it says Kisferis, or sometimes it's referring to the Emek HaMelech. So the Rebbe answers in a letter to someone, how can you rely on Emek HaMelech? Isn't there a Messiah that we only rely on Reb Chaim Vital? So the Rebbe's reply to that is, those who don't have any other Kabbalah have to go with their Messiah, but the Baal Shem Tov we know is Mekabel from Achia Shiloni, and therefore the Baal Shem Tov and of course the Bezitcha Magid and further knew exactly which pieces you could rely on from the Emek HaMelech. Now when you learn Chassidus Chabad, Chassidus Teves Chassidus, you see all the time Emek HaMelech. Let's take for example the first Maimon in Samachvov, which you must all learned. Where does he mention the Tzimtzum Rishon? Right at the beginning, the first Maimon, he mentions the Tzimtzum Rishon. Who's the mocker for this Tzimtzum Rishon that he's talking about? The Emek HaMelech. And whenever it's brought down this inyan of what's the kavanah of the Bria, it's brought down this same Emek HaMelech. What does it say? That the kavanah, there was a Tzimtzum Rishon, which was a derech siluk. And what's the kavanah? That should be mamshech back the Olam Sof. How do you be mamshech back the Olam Sof? La'ovdil l'shomra through mitzvah. Same mitzvah leisa, say you mamshech back the Olam Sof. So you see, you bring the Emek HaMelech also as a mocker for the Tzimtzum Rishon. Nevertheless, the Rebbe said in Memhei that we find in this Emek HaMelech and in other Svarim, based on that branch of Kabbalah, we find that there's also Tzimtzumim Lifnei Tzimtzum. The Rebbe then didn't go into the details in the Tzad HaKabbalah. The Tzad HaKabbalah is a bit more technical, it's a bit more difficult to follow. You have to go through the Michoel. If we have time, maybe we'll get into it afterwards. But what did the Rebbe explain? What inyan of Tzimtzum, Lifnei Tzimtzum, does the Rebbe explain? So the first thing is, let's start with an obvious question that's glaring. When you say that Tzimtzumim Lifnei the Tzimtzum Rishon, so then why call that the Tzimtzum Rishon? If there's more beforehand, it's not the Rishon, it's the Sheni, the Shlishi, and the other Svarim which Taka say that the Tzimtzum that's talked about in Eitz Chaim, which we usually bring from the Eitz Chaim, is a Tzimtzum HaSheni. And before that there was another Tzimtzum. So why would we call the Chassidus Chabad, this is the Tzimtzum Rishon? According to Chassidus Chabad side, the Tzimtzum that's brought down in Eitz Chaim, which is the standard Mocker, and even the Tzimtzum that's brought down from Emek HaMelech, occasionally, like mentioned before, La'avdil l'shamra, that Emek HaMelech Eitz Chaim is the same thing. It's talking about the Tzimtzum HaRishon. So if you say there's Tzimtzum Bifnei, what could it mean that there's more Tzimtzum before that? So we're going to obviously have to be mechalik and say there's two different types of Tzimtzum. What is a Tzad HaShova that this is a Tzimtzum Harishon to what? Rishon means there's a Shein and a Shlishi and so on. What is the Tzad HaShova between the Tzimtzum Rishon and all the Tzimtzumim that come after that? The Tzad HaShova is that the Tzimtzum Rishon is b'derech siluk, which means a chisaron of oil, a helam of oil. Obviously, Tzimtzum Einikim Pshuta, it's only helam, but B'negel L'maisa there was a chisaron of gilui oil. All the Tzimtzumim coming after that is also in of chisaron, because after the Tzimtzum Rishon, even though there was Amshachas HaKav, but nevertheless the Kav came down. First of all, the Kav itself is a Kav Kotzer, which means it's a Metzumtzum Dika oil. And then as it comes down, Madrega becomes more and more Metzumtzum until there's only a Ha'ora of the Kav. In Atzilus there's only Ha'ora Sakav. And then once you go through the Parsa, between Atzilus and Bri, it's a Ha'ora Da Ha'ora. And so it goes on, Ha'ora Da Ha'ora Da Ha'ora, until you come to Ein Maza Agashmi, and there's a Ha'ora Da Ha'ora in everything. Ata Machayis Kulum. So we see Tzimtzumim means a chisaron of oil, a miut or a siluk lagamri was the Tzimtzum Rishon. If that's the case, the Tzimtzumim Shulifnei Tzimtzum means that there's no chisaron of oil, there's no miut and there's no helam of oil. So what is this inyan of Tzimtzum? So let's go to the Lashon that the Rebbe brings down, look at the Sichas, from Teves Shalom, from the Rebbe Rashab. In one of the Sichas, the Rebbe Rashab explained the difference between the moshul of Oyer HaShemesh and the nimshul, the way it is L'mayla. Avada, we use the moshul of Oyer HaShemesh, the Alter Rebbe uses it the whole time, we have it in Tanya many times. Mistamim, we use it on the Pasuk, Shemesh U'mogen Havaya Likim. It talks about Shem Havaya is like the Shemesh, and the Mogen is Shem Likim. So we have the moshul of the Shemesh, but every moshul has a chisaron. The very fact that it's a moshul Gashmi is already a chisaron. So what's the chisaron? One of the chisaronis of the moshul of the Oyer HaShemesh, one of the chisaronis is that the Shemesh is not in control of the oil. The oil comes out of the Shemesh, whether the Shemesh is in a good mood or not, the oil is going to come out. Because it's b'derech memela, he's going to not shaylet. It's behechrech of the Shemesh. But l'mayla, avada, you can't say such a thing. L'mayla, it's beratzen. The Eibishter, if he wants, will be meir oil, and if he doesn't want it, he doesn't have to be. Not just because that the Eibishter is a stronger moer, kaviyachol. It's because Atzmus is bechral not a moer. We call him a moer only when we try to explain the inyan of oil coming from Atzmus, so we call him a moer. But Atzmus is not a moer. He's also a moer, but he doesn't have to be a moer. Atzmus is higher than the inyan of moer. Moer just means the yechelis lahoyer. But Atzmus has a yechelis shaloi lahoyer, and Atzmus has a yechelis to blik vulinyana, which we don't know about. It's koyachol. So Atzmus we refer to as a moer only in the context that from Atzmus comes oil. If that's the case, it makes perfect sense to say that the fact that Atzmus is a moer doesn't mean that the oil comes automatically. It's not really a moer. The oil is beratzen. Says the Rebbe Rashab, beratzen is oisius, rotzen is oisius tzino. Tzino means a pipe, a tzimtzum. So the fact that oil comes beratzen is already an inyan of tzimtzum. The lashon of the Rebbe Rashab is that the oil comes through an akova, an ophalt. In English, I suppose ophalt would be a withholding. In other words, the oil doesn't come just free as you go. There's a moer and automatically there's oil. The oil comes through an ophalt. It's a decision. It's kaviyachol. It's beratzen. We don't say rotzen mamish l'mayla. We say ritzoinis. That's already another inyan. But it's beratzen. And since it's beratzen, that means it's coming through an akava. Ki'ilu noima. Kaviyachol. Ki'ilu noima. The Eibishter was holding the oil within, and then he allowed it to come out. And says the Rebbe Rashab there in the Sikha that since the oil comes through an akava, that itself allows for madregas in oil itself. The very fact that the oil is not just plain, it's going through an akova, an ophalt, means that the oil is not automatic. That means there's already room for madregas. And in that, it's not daima to Oyer HaShemesh. Oyer HaShemesh, which is not beratzen, which is automatic, has no madregas in oil in Oyer HaShemesh. The same oil here, the same oil there. It's all one big oil. Obviously, besides the fact that it's a gashmi, it becomes weaker as it comes further and further away from the shemesh. But that's not madregas in oil. You can't have a madrega in oil Hashemesh. Oil Hashemesh is one oil. Masha'inkin l'mayla, the fact that the oil goes through an ophalt, that makes that the oil would have the ability to have different levels in oil. In other words, it's a controlled gilui. It's not automatic. There's a letter from the Rebbe in Igris and Chelik Gimel, and it's printed at the back of the Sichas Chelik Tezvav, where somebody asked the Rebbe, hold on a second, you're saying that there's madregas in oil himself. All the madregas in the cities we talk about, this madrega in himself, Mokra Seviv is oil himself, Hashayach Eloimus. Then there's oil Shalamayli Mishayach Eloimus. Then there's a madrega Lamayli Yesu, which is called Etzem oil. How can you have madregas in oil himself? Isn't the Lashon of Eitz Chaim Hoya oil echot poshut memalakol mitzias, or words similar to that? Bahashva achas. It's pshitas. How do you have the levels in oil himself? Says the Rebbe, that's not a problem. When you say pshitas, it's relative. Oil himself, shalifna tzimtzum legabe seidi ishtalshlus, is called pshitas. It's called an oil echot poshut beyachas to ishtalshlus, but it doesn't mean that it's pshitas. There's no levels. For us, that would be called pshitas. The Rebbe says there's kamadik mois where you could see that you call something pshitas legabe something else. For example, one of the examples would be, let's say, the neshama before it comes into the guf is pshitas legabe the guf, but obviously it's not poshut legabe haya. It has esokeiches, it has an etzem, it has giluim, it has different madregas. But legabe the guf is pshitas, and there's other mishonim which the Rebbe brings. So you find that oil and sof is called pshitas, beyachas to say the ishtamshus, but it's not mamish pshitas. There's only one real tachlis pshitas. The only one who's tachlis pshitas is atzmus mahus. Atzmus mahus is pasha b'tachlis pshitas. But anything besides that, anything that's lower than atzmus mahus, is already nitn shiurim. It's already has shaychus to madregas. Then the Rebbe adds on a ha'ara. He says ha'ara ein kam mekayim levaya. This is where you see that the Rebbe already had the tzimtzum in my mind back before the Nesias. Ein kam mekayim levaya mahu ha'oiseh madregas selu. So in this letter, I'm not going to go into who makes these madregas in oil himself. He doesn't go into it there. He says, so what we're looking for basically, when we say that Tzimtzum, if not Tzimtzum, is practically who makes these madregas in oil himself. So we have one beginning, we have one yesod. From this sikha from the Rebbe Rashab, that the oil comes through an akova. So let's translate that a bit more. What does it mean, an akova? Akova means an ophalt, which means a tnuah von nisht. Von loy lahoya. There's a tnuah of not being made oil, and then he allows oil. So now let's ask the question. If we now have oil, the oil comes out of the moor. Where is this loy lahoya? Where is this akova? I'll repeat what it says in Torah Shalom. The loy lahoya, the akova, is in the moor. The moor kaviyachol withholds it. It's ma'akiv the oil, and then allows the oil to come out. Is there any more akovis after that, on the next levels of oil itself? So, there's a maimah which you're probably all familiar with, the maimah v'nochol of Ruach Hashem, Tavshin Yudalad, where the Rebbe brings down the inyan of Yecholis Lahoy and Yecholis Loy Lahoy. We're talking now about the oil itself. Where does the oil itself, which Yecholis does the oil itself come from? The Yecholis Lahoy. From the fact that Atzmas we call him a Moer, because the Yecholte Lahoy. So from the Yecholis Lahoy comes out oil. That Yecholis is restricted only to the inyan of Yecholis Lahoy, or that Yecholis is kailul also the Yecholis Shloi Lahoy. In Atzmas you can't make chilukim. So therefore the Yecholis Lahoy is the same Yecholis as Shloi Lahoy. And we say that actually on the Tefillas of the Golomb Neiroi, we say in the Kol, we say Hakol Yochol, the Kololom Yachad. So see this, what does it mean, the Kololom Yachad? Hakol Yochol, this with the Amish as a Kol Yochol, is Kololom, is Kolol, both Yecholis and Yachad. The Yecholis Lahoy and the Yecholis Shloi Lahoy is all one Yecholis, Kol Yochol. So therefore it comes out that the oil is coming from the Yecholis Lahoy, but it's not separate. V'shor shal kaponim in Yecholis, it's not separate from the Yecholis Shloi Lahoy. L'may nafkimina. L'may nafkimina that the Yecholis Lahoy comes from the same Yecholis as the Yecholis Shloi Lahoy. Just stop for a minute. What comes from the Yecholis Shloi Lahoy? From what we know, Tzimtzum, the inyan of the Kelim, Gufim, Parsois, anything on that kav the whole Seder Yishtalshus splits itself up into these two kavim, Giluyim and Hester, Oires and Kalim, Neshamis and Gufim, Bli Gvul and Gvul. So we know the Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer expresses itself in the inyan of Tzimtzum, the inyan of Kalim, and the inyan of Gvul. Does it have any expression before the Tzimtzum, the Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer? Now, Babuska Rishon, no. We know that Lifnei Tzimtzum was only Oyer and Sof, was Meir and Anofen of Bli Gvul, and what happened to the Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer? Wait a bit, wait till you get to the Tzimtzum, and then you'll see the Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer, that he can be Ma'il and Master the whole Oyer and Sof b'derech Siluk. And now was Nisgala the Koyach HaGvul, which is an offshoot, is a branch of the Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer. It's coming from the Yecholis in Atzmos Shaloi Lahoyer. So you would think the Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer comes about when? By the Tzimtzum. But in between Atzmos Kaviyachol and the Tzimtzum Arishon, there's only the Yecholis Lahoyer, only the inyan of Bli Gvul. There's no inyan of Gvul then before the Tzimtzum. But the truth is, it's not like that. Since the oil comes from the Yecholis, which is also the Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer, comes out that also in the oil is Kolol the Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer. The oil is not only oil, it's Kolol also from the Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer.
Why does the oil have to be Kolol?
Because it's coming from the same Yecholis. That's what the Rabbi says in the Mayim and Toshin Yudan. It's coming from the same Yecholis, and therefore it's incorporated also. It's not poil anything l'cha'ira. We're going to have to wait till the Tzimtzum. Or if you want to answer, so let's go. You want to go back a bit? Let's go back a bit. The oil has to be kolol from the kavanas hatzimtzum. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to go through the Tzimtzum. And the Tzimtzum has to be kolol from the kavanas hagilui. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to take in oil. By the Tzimtzum was nisgal the koyach hagvul, and the oil was nichlal into the koyach hagvul, and from after the Tzimtzum afterwards, they work together. The kav is not just kav; it's kolol also from the inyan of.
So this is limited to those two koyches of the Eibusher.
Then it becomes two separate inyanim. But koydem Tzimtzum, there was only oil and sof. What happened to the Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer? L'cha'ira, it wasn't doing anything. This is the vort over here when we say, the Rebbe says it in Toshin Yudala clearly, that it's not like that. The Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer was also poil in the oil and sof shalifnei Tzimtzum. How so? The Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer is poil on the oil that it should come down from one level to the next. The fact that the oil is kolol from Shaloi Lahoyer allows for the next level and the next level. There's a tnuah of Shaloi Lahoyer, just like we were saying beforehand. How does the oil come out from the moil? Through an akova, which is what? It's the same thing as Shaloi Lahoyer. It's a tnuah of nisht, Loi Lahoyer. Al derech zeh mimadrega lamadrega, there's a tnuah of Shaloi Lahoyer, which allows for the next level to come out. And then for the next level to come out, you need again a tnuah of Shaloi Lahoyer. So it comes out that the tnuah of Shaloi Lahoyer is all the way is being poil shinuyim in the oil. That answers the question the Rebbe said in that letter over there. Ein kam v'keim levayim mahu ha'isa chilukim. Now we know what is ha'isa chilukim. The tnuah of Shaloi Lahoyer, the Yecholis Shaloi Lahoyer, hakolol b'ha'oil. Now as
why does it work?
What?
Why do you have to make another level?
In order to make, if you want. You don't have to, but if you want to have another level of oil, how do you get to the next level? You need to have a tzimtzum, that means an ophalt of the higher level that allows now for the next level. We have a similar musik. If you look just one second. If you look in the Maim of Chedesh Hashlishi Tafshin Lamed Gimel, the Rebbe uses an expression. Even there, you can see the beginnings of this inyan. The Rebbe uses an expression. He says, "You beloshen hakabbalah moti v'lei moti." What is moti v'lei moti? I'm sure you've come across this. Moti v'lei moti is in madregas of oil, as oil is nisgala, not rotzer v'shoy. It's the opposite of rotzer v'shoy. When oil is nisgala from a higher level, let's say from keser, we say moti v'lei moti. Moti means Russian noita, mispashit. The oil is mispashit, ve'enim mispashit. In order, for example, the Lashon is moti b'keser is loy moti chochmah. As long as keser is being meir, there's no room for chokhmah. There has to be a loy mati keser, a pullback, so to speak, of keser, and that allows for chokhmah. So that pullback allows for the lower level. So the same thing, Kaviyachol Amayla in itself, in order to get from one level to the next, there has to be a Tzimtzum, which is an akova, a pullback, a loymoti, and that allows for the next level. So it comes out that what in a punchline, what is the nekudas hachiluk between the Tzimtzum Harishon onwards and the Tzimtzum Shalifnei Tzimtzum? The Tzimtzum Harishon onwards is the Koyach HaGvul, the Yechayr Shloi Lahoya, has become a kav on its own. It's an inyan of L'Shem Mitzvahs Kalim, L'Shem Mitzvahs Yechayr Shloi Lahoya. Gvul, nothing to do with Bli Gvul. And that's why there had to be a Siluk Lagamri, to be Megala, a new inyan, Gvul L'Shem Gvul. But before the Tzimtzum, before there was the Tzimtzum Harishon, where was the Yechayr Shloi Lahoya? It was there, but it wasn't being poil ba'ofen as a kav b'fnei atzmai. It was part and parcel of the oil itself. It was being poil in the oil gufa. Just to give a mashal and a dugma of what would be a mashal gashmin and dugma naveda for this musig, that it was a chelik of the gil. Let's give a mashal gashmi, which the Rabbi was saying brings it down, but again something else. But it's after the tzimtzum, but we can use it here as well. A mashal of koyach hagili in a person would be he's a koyach to do anything. So let's take an example of writing or drawing. You take a pen, you megala the koyach hatnua in writing. Give this pen to a child. What's he going to do with the pen? Scribbling. He doesn't have the yechelis shaloi lahoy. He has the yechelis to be megala. He can make lines, but he can't be madbil himself. A person who is grown up knows how to control his pen, that it doesn't go out of the line, it's punkt. If he's very, very mefutach, very, very developed in his koyach hagvul, in his yechelis shaloi lahoya, he'll become an artist. He'll draw and he'll know exactly how to do it and where to do it. This is a chochma more of gvul than bli gvul, more of helam than gilui. Where is this koyach hagvul? When he writes and he wants to stop the pen over there, does he have to take another hand and stop the pen moving? Or is it minei obey from the same hand? Or the Russian of the Rebbe brings down in the first mime in Tafshin Chafei, mi'ayin shenimshach hagil mishom nimshach hahelim. From the same mocker that the oil came out, the same mocker is the mocker also of the gvul, of the hadbolah. So when it comes out, it's a controlled movement. So he doesn't just move quickly and then stop from the other hand, or somebody else has to hold his hand. That's a child. A grown-up knows how to control the chatchila. It's controlled as he uses his koyach hagili. He's able to pull back and make a smaller line or bigger line. V'chulu. That would be a mashal gashmi. Now a mashal in Avodas HaAdam. What would be a mashal of gvul, tzimtzum, and gilui in Avodah? So Avodas HaAdam is based on two things, right? Ava and Yira. So Ava would be gilui. Ava is chesed and gilui. Tzimtzum is gvura and helen, which is Yira. So let me ask a question. You've all learned Tanya. Comes to Perek Mem Aleph, starts off Ram Tzorach Lisli Zikar and Talmid. Above all, you have to understand, you have to remember that a person has to have Yira. It's not enough to have Ava, you have to have Yira. What's the Yira? Hashem Nitzav Olav, Melech Elotz Kavoidei, Mavit Olav, etc. What happened until Perek Mem Aleph? Where was the Yira? We didn't have to speak about Yira before until we got to Perek Mem Aleph. What's Manis Chadish with Perek Mem Aleph? All of a sudden, we had Yira beforehand. Look in Perek Yud Ches, for example, where the Alter Rebbe starts talking about the Avim Teves, and he says it's Nichlal in the Av is also the Inyan of Yira. Nichlal do gam tchilu. Perek Chafei, the Nichlal do gam tchilu. The Ava incorporates also Gvura. What's the difference between the Yira that we're talking about in Perek Yud Ches and Chafei and the Yira that we're talking about in Perek Mem Aleph? Obviously, it's the Yira that we're talking about in Perek Mem Aleph is Yira L'Shem Mitzvahs Yira. There's a Tnuah of Yira, Bittul. You have to do what the Rebbe says. Why? For no other reason. He's the king, and Nitzav Olav, and you have to do what he says whether you like it or not. That's Yira, L'Shem Yira. The Yira that he's talking about in Perek Yud Ches onwards is Nichlal Bo. It's part of Ava. Why is he Yoreh to do something which is Hepech HaRatzon of the Eibishter? Because he doesn't want to be a Nifrit. What does it mean he doesn't want to be Nifrit from the Eibishter? Because he has an Ava to the Eibishter, so therefore he's scared to do something that's going to spoil the Ava, spoil the connection. when a child is running to his parent and he wants to hold on to his parent, he doesn't want to be taken away. Is that yira? That's a part of ava. The ava is so strong that he has a fear that somebody shouldn't take him away. So the yira is part of the ava. It's not a separate kav. Perik Memalav is a separate kav. That's the difference between before the Tzimtzum and after the Tzimtzum and after the Tzimtzum. The Tzimtzum shelifnat Tzimtzum is nichlal ba gam tchilu. It's Eir in Sof, which is gilui, but nichlal ba also the tnua for nisht. To hold back, but it's part of the Eir. Or to quote the lashon of the Maim in Mem Hey, the Rabbi uses uses the way of explaining it that there's Oisis and Shem Havaya, there's Tzimtzum, there's Madregas and Shem Havaya. So Havaya's also got Tzimtzumim, but can you compare that to the Tzimtzumim of Shem Elikim? Shem Elikim is Gvura. Shem Elikim is Tzimtzum as a Kav Bifnei Atzmai. If you find Tzimtzumim in Yud Kei Vav Kei, that's Tzimtzumim within Eir and Sof. It's not a separate Kav. So these are Tzimtzumim, which is part of the Eir and Sof. So the Nakuda is that Tzimtzum, if not Tzimtzum, is the Yechoyle Shaloi Lahoya HaKolol B'Ha'or. One can take it further and explain also in a different signon that it's the Oisis Shalifnat Tzimtzum, because we find the same thing but again to Oisis. I think we'll leave it as that. But again to so far so good. Should we go to the Kabbalistic part of it? This is a bit more exciting, but it's a bit technical. We now come to something that the Rebbe, actually in the Maimah of Bosel Ligani, the Rebbe doesn't really mention too much about it. He just says it's Miyusad, it's Tzimtzum, Shlifnat Tzimtzum is Miyusad on Sifrei Kabbalah, which he speaks about every now and then, not too often. But in the Maimah that came afterwards, the Maimah of Chamish Osa B'Shvat, there the Rebbe quotes his father in the Kutei Yitzchak, Pashas Truma, where there he does go into the Kabbalah part of it. So I'll try and make it as simple as possible, because Kvadoshu Bo Rabbi, what's exactly the pshat? There is a famous ha'ara from the Rebbe in Hecholzu Ranat. Perich of Zayin in Kuntus Hecholzu, there's a ha'ara from the Rebbe about the Tzimtzum Rishon. There it says, in the Pnim, it talks about that after the Tzimtzum was left in the Kuda, and the Rebbe goes into to understand what is this Nakuda that's left, the Nakuda Sarashim. Let's see if I can find the Lashon that the Rebbe says. You have the Lashon of Ranat? Oh. I'm just going to do the part that talks about the second half of the Ha'ara, Perich Chav Zayin. It says, Ve'emek HaMelech, quotes where it is, Muva, it's brought down, the L'mokim Ponri Nimtza Gam Kein Rishimu Shel Ein Sof. V'nikra Oil Kadman, U'Rishimu Shel HaMalbish Shemechanim Oise B'Shem Yud. Nakuda, the Hainu Yud. And that's why the Mokim Ponri is called Ave Kadman. Our Mokim Ponri is Ein Achol L'mokim Ponri Sheboi Medaber Be'etz Chaim, B'tchilosei, U'Be'etz Chaim, U'Ve'shoim Yeshasidim, V'Shehu V'Bekam V'Kemis V'dach, Ki Hu Lifnei HaTzimtzum Shebebechinis Ogul, Meruba V'loi Ogul. V'V'Tivre Rabbi Seinu, Ayin, Ha'is Sekosa Ayin Dalet. Have you heard of the Eiram HaMalbush? Eiram HaMalbush?
Eiram HaMalbush?
Eiram HaMalbush. Malbush? Eiram HaMalbush. What is Eiram HaMalbush? It's brought down in the Kutei Torah, but it's not spoken about too often. In Shaykh Lemuni you have the expression that the Oisius which are Mahava are from the Reish Lamed Aleph Sha'orim HaMizgalgal Eis Ponim V'Ocher. Which Oisius are these? Where's this Reish Lamed Aleph Sha'orim? Which part of the Seder Yishtam? So the thing is like this. After the Tzimtzum was left the Rishimu, which we know in Chassidus is called the Oisius of the Rishimu. The Oisius of the Rishimu means that there was a koyach to make Oisius. And this we'll call the Nakuda of Yud. The Rishimu is the Nakuda, it's the Nakuda of Yud. What comes after Yud? A Hey. So from these Oisius of the Rishimu, from the koyach of the Rishimu, was built up a Ma'areches of Oisius. And Sirufim of Oisius. And altogether, if you work it out, if there's 22 letters, and each one is mitzaref to the other one, there's many shittas how to do the Rish Lamed Aleph Sharim. But just to make the easiest one, if you take the first line of Aleph Beis, Aleph till Tov, so the tziruf here is going to be the tziruf of Ois Aleph, the Shah Aleph, the first Shah. If we take Ois Aleph and we write out Aleph till Tov, we have 22 letters. If we want to make another tziruf, we take the base, we'll take him out, and we'll put him at the end after the Tov. What's the tziruf now? Aleph Gimel Dalet Hey Vav Zayin Tov,
21.
base. What?
So it's 21.
No, we didn't take him away, we added him onto the end.
So
The base we put after the Tov. Now we have Aleph Gimel, Tov, base. Now we do the next line, Aleph Dalet.
So you're still doing Aleph Beis though?
Yeah, we're doing Aleph base is the first line. All the way
Okay,
to the
then
end.
in the Aleph Gimel,
The base is moved to the end.
And we're living.
didn't you do all of them already? What's different?
No, we're doing a second line now.
You did Aleph Aleph.
No, we don't do Aleph Aleph.
No,
Aleph is the same. Aleph
you did
Aleph is the
Aleph
same
to
thing.
Beis, Aleph to
That's
Gimel.
for matzahs. No, Aleph is one sif. That's Aleph.
Okay.
Right. Now Aleph base. Now Aleph Gimel, Aleph Dalet, and each letter that you take out, you put at the end. So it's a different sif. That's the problem. You get what I'm saying?
Nope.
Next time, the same thing, just 2 days.
What are these lines?
This is
Right,
building,
Aleph is an Aleph.
being mitzaref the oisius. There's being mishava oisius. We're weaving the oisius into a malbush. That's basically what it is. That's what's called Eidem HaMalbush. It's like a levush to the Oir HaKav.
Okay.
So there's made from oisius tzirufim. How many tzirufim can you make? So the cheshbon, at least at one letter, would be like this. If you take the aleph, like you write the aleph seder, and then you do the aleph again, and you take out the base, and you do aleph gimel, aleph dalet, aleph hey, aleph vov, right? And you continue all the way down. How many lines are you going to have? How many lines are you going to have if you do aleph base, aleph gimel, aleph dalet?
Why are you moving the base?
21. 21. Because we're not doing aleph aleph, we're doing aleph base. So aleph base, so you go all the way down, aleph tov is going to be the last one.
Right.
So we have 21 lines and 22 letters. How much does that equal? Tell me the other teller, how much is 21 times 22?
It's 461.
461.
362.
462. Now, so let's imagine let's imagine, I'll do it, it's easier. Let's imagine this is our letter, these are our lines of letters, right? There's aleph base over here, and our letters all the way down till here, and we have these 462 tzirufim. Now let's take half of these letters in the middle, aleph lamed, and we'll fold it up backwards. So this half becomes ocher to that half. So what do you have? What's half of 431? 231 on top, and 231 on the bottom. Reish lamed aleph ponim, reish lamed aleph ocher. That's ponim va'ocher, reish lamed aleph shorim, ponim va'ocher. That's called Eidem HaMalbush. That's called the Eidem HaMalbush. Even before it's folded, it's called Eidem HaMalbush. There's a second Tzimtzum. This is now again. So we have the Tzimtzum Arishan. There's left the koyach of the Rishima, which is a koyach to make oisius. The oisius start forming in a form of double Reish Lamed Aleph. Then we fold it. That's called the Tzimtzum HaMalbush. We do a Tzimtzum HaMalbush. What's left over here? Half a square. Because the Malbush is a square. As opposed to what? The Tzimtzum Arishan is a circle, right? Doesn't it say? What's the difference of circle and square? This sounds mamish Kabbalah. What does it mean? When you say an eagle, it means that there's nothing closer to any other side. It's surrounding equally. There's nothing closer to this side or that side. It's equally surrounded. B'hashva achas. Mashenkin, if you have a square, you have milo mata, you have hisyashvus, it sits, a circle rolls, this sits. So it shows on hisyashvus, and it shows on a certain hakbola. And there is milo mata. So, the Tzimtzum Arishan was that everything was nistalik, the whole oil itself was nistalik, and it's b'shava. In other words, there's no part of Seder Shtalsha which you can say is closer. The Mokim Pone, everything there is meruchet from oil itself equally. But when you start making the Olam HaMalbush, there's Milo Mata. If we now make a Tzimtzum in the Olam HaMalbush, which is called the Kippur HaMalbush, then you're left with a square underneath, which is a Tzimtzum of a Merubah. That Mokim Ponri over here, the square underneath, has in it two Rishimas. It's the Rishima, the original Rishima of the Oren Sof, and also the Rishima of the Malbish. So therefore, since the Rishima of the Malbish is called a Yud, and the Rishima of Oren Sof is called, in Sifra Kabbalah, Oil Kadman, so Oil Kadman plus Yud is Avi Kadman. So there we have the square underneath. Right, so which comes first, the Tzimtzum B'derech Igul or the Tzimtzum B'derech Merubah? Based on what we're talking about, first comes the Igul, then comes the Merubah. It happens to be that afterwards, in that Merubah, there was another shtickle siluk, which is B'bechinis Igul. So we have Igul, Merubah, and another Igul in the second half of the Merubah. I hope not, but it's not so. Right, I have to speak Moses of Kabbalah because that's how it's brought down. The letter brings it down. So let me just read that line again. The Nimtza gam kein Rishima shel Eitzof nikra Oil Kadman, u'Rishima shel HaMalbush shemechanim Eisa b'shem Nekuda. Therefore, the Mokim Poni is called Avi Kadman. But look at the panel what the Rebbe writes afterwards. Avol Mokim Poni zeh. This Merubah that we're talking about, Eina hacholul Mokim Poni shemei b'davar b'Eitz Chaim. This Merubah that we're talking about is not the one in Eitz Chaim and Eitz Chaim and Mevaishonim and Mishchusidim Shehuva B'Kama B'Kemis B'Dach. It's not that one. Ki hu lifnei haTzimtzum shebechinas Igul. It's before the Igul.
This is why I don't get it, because it's before the whole Tzimtzum.
It's a problem, right? You see, it's a problem. It's before the Igul. Merubah v'lei Ogul. Then the Rebbe writes, Uvedivi Rabbeinu. If you look in Ha'isa Sukose Ayin Dalet, he says clearly, the Malbish is definitely after the Tzimtzum Arishon. No shine about that. So we have the Eagle, we have the Malbish, and then of course there's going to be the Tzimtzum Malbish, which is the Kippur, the square. But the Rebbe Rashab says, just like you have an Eagle and a Merubah, La'achra Tzimtzum, you also have Dugma Zeh Lifnei Tzimtzum. What is the Merubah Lifnei Tzimtzum? So here, again, going back to what we learned before, the Tzimtzum Lifnei Tzimtzum is not an inyan of siluk. It's not an inyan of being of chisaron of oil. So how could there be an igul and a merubah before the Tzimtzum Rishon? Elamai, what's the Tzimtzum? What's the igul and merubah? It's a different levels in oil and sof. So the oil which we're going to call a merubah Lifnei Tzimtzum is going to be the oil which is mamish shaykh el oilam. It's the last madrega of oil and sof. And the eagle is going to be the oil which is Lamaila from Shaykh's La'ilamis. And then the Rebbe Rashab goes further. If you want, you can take it even higher than that. The Klonos oil and sof is called a Merubah because it's Shtikl Hadbala, it's already an oil. It's not Atzmus. And the eagle is Atzmus on himself. Now, what is the problem over here is that wherever you go, Ayin Dala, which the Rebbe is Mitzayin to, and all other places in the Rebbe Rashab's Maimarim, where he mentions the eagle and the merubah, the samach, the mem and samach, I shouldn't say the other way around. Mem and samach, mem stuma and the samach. The mem is the square and the samach is an eagle, right? So you have the mem v'samach, you have the mem v'samach shlachar tzimtzum, mem v'samach shlifnat tzimtzum, fine. But always what comes first? Eagle. And here the Rebbe says, this Tzimtzum I'm just mentioned, this Mokim Ponri, which is a Merubah, is hu lifnei haTzimtzum shebechinas Ogul, Merubah v'lei Ogul. Hilei Proi. I asked Gdoilei Yisrael, and asked Rabbi B'Shaitoi in Memches, I think it was, and he says, he remembers that it's a tzorach here. So the Eibishter geholfen that there was a Maimah in Tafshim Mem Hey after this Maimah Basligan. And look at the Lashon. This you can listen to on a tape. The Maimah of Chamish Oseh B'Shvat Tafshim Mem Hey, you can listen on a tape. And there the Rebbe says Be'erech the Lashon is as explained before that the Tzimtzum Lifnei Tzimtzum, the Rebbe says, and just like in the Tzimtzum Shelifnei Tzimtzum. Maybe there's a Lashon here. They have the Lashon here. Yiddish maybe. The Rebbe says, just like in the Tzimtzum, in Rifnei Tzimtzum, we said there's Kama v'Kama Madrigas, Kama v'Kama Protim, all the different Madrigas Rifnei Tzimtzum, is al derech zeh. The Tzimtzum Rishon also has in it Kama v'Kama Protim, Kamavur in the Ha'oris, Kamavur in the Ha'oris von Taten of Zeh Reish Parshas Teruma, I'm just quoting the Lashon Be'erach, wir sehen ein und einzige Tzimtzum, mit Kama v'Kama Rishonis, was jeden Lashon beweist auf a besondere Tzimtzum. This is the Lashon of the Rebbe in the Maimon. Listen to it again. So it's a still in obey. Wie in ein und einzige Tzimtzum, in der Kammer v'Kammer l'Shoines, was jeder Lashon beweist auf a besondere Tzimtzum. In ein und einzige Tzimtzum, there's few different Lashones in the Zohar, which each Lashon is a different Tzimtzum. I think you just said it's one Tzimtzum. Elamai, don't link the teretz to the Shaila, what we're asking about, what the Rebbe mean in that thing. The Tzimtzumim shelifnei Tzimtzum are nothing to do with Siluk again. You have to remember that. It's nothing to do with Siluk. It's all Madregas in oil. The Tzimtzum Rishon is Siluk. In that Siluk of Tzimtzum Rishon, there's many different pratim. Usually we just talk about Siluk, we have an eagle, and then we have the calf. We don't talk about the details. Who ever heard the Rama Malbish beforehand? We'll down the Kutatera, but Kutatera is Medachma Beseder. So they get, so there's a Malbish. As they say in the Babish, there was a certain, I think they say on Michoel the Alta, they used to learn Kutatera. And he didn't understand everything. It was a Veda was Lahafli. In Naskol, Lav Davka, so we'd come across Rosh Teves Ak. Somebody asked him, what's this Ak? So it's a number from Amalek. So Malbish is a number from Amalek, gave item. Huh? So the Malbish is it's a Malbish of the Malach. Okay, fine. So, but the vart is that we never heard of it, because we only learn about the Tzimtzum Rishon. But Tzimtzum, there's a Tzimtzum Rishon and Shachas HaKav. But in those places where you want to go be Protis Yosef, the Tzimtzum Rishon has in it Kama v'Kama Protim. And in the Zohar there's Kama v'Kama Lashonis, and each Lashon shows on a different Tzimtzum within the Tzimtzum Rishon. Lefi zeh, Yishen Fa'emfet. Akaponim the Yisod. That when the Rebbe talks about this mocking ponu is before that one, he's not talking about before the Tzimtzum Rishon as we know it. Because before the Tzimtzum Rishon there is no mocking ponu. That was the Yisod we learned before. The Tzimtzum Rifnei Tzimtzum is not a mocking ponu, it's not a helem, it's not a siluk, it's all madregas in itself. It's all akov, allowing another madrega of bligvul to be nisgala. Bligvul in a high madrega, bligvul in another madrega, tzad hashove b'nehem, loyri yizeh k'yizeh, tzad hashove b'nehem, that's all bligvul. Lifnei Tzimtzum is bligvul. But la'achra Tzimtzum Rishon, there comes along different efanim of siluk. There's the siluk b'derech eagle, then there's the Tzimtzum b'derech meruba, which is the Tzimtzum of the Malbish, and then after that there's another eagle. So it comes out, if you want to make pictures, you have the big eagle, you have the square inside the eagle, then you have the square, the bottom half of the square is after the Tzimtzum of the Malbish, and in that you have another little square, another little eagle, and that will be the eagle of Eitz Chaim. What does the Rebbe mean? It's one Tzimtzum. In Eitz Chaim he doesn't go into all these things. In Eitz Chaim he deals with one eagle, that's it. He's talking about the Mokim Ponri, you make it Tzimtzum b'derech eagle, and then you have a Mokim Ponri. We don't need the in-between things. The Eitz Chaim doesn't mention it at all. If you want to go into details, what happened, till you got to the actual Mokim Ponri, which you can make Olamas, so there's a system. First there came Olam HaMalbish, which is Oisius. Then there was the Kippur HaMalbish. And then there was a Tzimtzum within the Mokim Ponri that was left over by the Kippur, because even though there was the Kippur HaMalbish, still it's too much oil megabe the mokim achola for oilamas, so there had to be another tzimtzum b'derech eagle after that. So, and it's also meduich in the Lashon. If you see the Lashon, the Rebbe doesn't say tzimtzum. Just by the way, people don't chabzich. When the Rebbe talks about the tzimtzum, he says avol mokim ponui zeh. Doesn't say this tzimtzum. He says mokim ponui zeh is not the mokim ponui that talks about Eitz Chaim, because it's before the tzimtzum shebechinas eagle. Meaning, it's before the outcome of the eagle, which is the last eagle, which is the Mokaponim for Mitzias Eilamas. So, Akoponim, the Yisod lies in the Maimah of Rosh Hashanah, Tavshim, which came as a hemshech to the previous Maimah, that all these things of the eagle and Meruba is all pratim within the Tzimtzum Rishon, but La'olam, the Tzimtzum Rishon, the Tzimtzum Shlifnei Tzimtzum is not Siluk, it's all Inyonim of madrigas in blikvul in Ein Sof.
So,
Okay.
yeah, Tzimtzum.
Huh? I think that will do for now.
Tzimtzum is not